right now we are in what I like to call a Star Wars renaissance. So, what does that mean? To break it down, we are coming out of what I like to call a dark age, okay? And, this dark age we were in is very important for us to understand because it's not exactly what you'd think a dark age would be based upon. Now, that implies something like a degradation, a build-up, and then a downturn, and then now with the Renaissance, a revitalization. So the revitalization's very obvious. We had some amazing Star Wars television in the last year. Okay. For starters, Andor was insanely good. Like, there's going to be Emmys for that show, okay? There's no way they won't at least get, like, one or two categories at the very least. And, that said, even with very tiny flaws, some disconnects here or there, it still is really good. Like, more than an 8 out of 10. Could be a 9 out of 10 in some cases. Like, that is a very good rating for a Star Wars show. That is, like, unlike anything you could ever experience for those kind of things. So that alone is very cool. So we have that, Andor. Freaking awesome. Unbelievably awesome. And then, to top that off, we didn't just get Andor, we also got a re-release of what was it? Revenge of the Sith in movies. And we had Hayden Christensen introducing us to the mythos once again, reminding us, hey, I did my best then, and I'm doing my best now. And there he is, doing his thing, showing it off. He's even in the little advertisements for it, and that's a great way to go to the movies and just revitalize yourself, especially like in these times, like with these things. These two movies that hit very strong cultural points in the current situation in the world for certain amounts of people. Like these represent those things in like the feelings of helplessness in things, like the seeing of justice being done and injustices being done, and these movies represent a bit of both. And there's a bit of everything for everybody that likes either of those things in both those movies. The rebellion has those things, like those that founded the rebellion. Revenge of the Sith, there was a deleted scene with several of the senators that would be later on founding much of the rebellion and its cells, with Bail and Mon Mothma and other senators that contributed to that. It's there too. And I think that's really cool. We get a bit of everything with that. And now to bring it all back together, like, you got these two really good ones. And then, we had some, awesome, but maybe questionable to some shows. But, I thought they were all kick-ass. I thought Tales of the Bounty Hunters or whatever was really cool. Or Tales of the Underworld, sorry. That was cool. Bad Batch was interesting, too. I thought that was all right as well. That came out pretty well. And then we had even with the live TV series, we had Acolyte, which was, some they were a little off about it, but it was overall pretty interesting to watch if you set aside some things they're saying, which I'll relate to once we get back to the subject of the Dark Ages, because right now we're talking about the Renaissance. Okay, so there was like Renaissance things even in the Acolyte. Like, the choreography was great. Overall, like, people put their heart and soul into that show, and it shows in some regards too. Of course, you can say the opposite if you're on that side, but we'll get into the Dark Age thing soon and what that means, what it means with Star Wars coming off of that after a long hiatus of a drowned out thing. It's not just because of Acolyte, no. I'm a big fan of Acolyte, huge fan. You could find my Instagram, you'll see that I'm crazy for Acolyte, okay? Like, I literally, okay, it's a little spoiling what's going to be coming up on this channel, but, you know, I might have, you know, did a little bit of a silent protest, you see here. I might have done a bit of a silent protest, you see. I may have bought 3 photo ops with the only Acolyte actor, Manny Jacinto, that was at Star Wars Celebration, you know. And I might have told him, after asking me, oh my god, it's so nice to see you, after the 3rd time, and I told him, and this one is for all the cast of Acolyte. Okay? It wasn't just for my self-satisfaction, okay? It might have been a little, but, you know, it was for a purpose, and it was because I didn't like the fact that show was canceled. But yeah, to bring it back to this, we also had, you know, I'm not leaving you out. We had the amazing show for kids as well. That was a great one. I was really happy with that one too. Like, I love Adam. That was so interesting how they did that. Like, you know, yeah, Skeleton Crew, right? I'm not crazy, right? I'm not misremembering, right? That's the name of the show. Yeah, that was cool. That was cool. I like that. I think that added so many interesting elements to Star Wars again with that. I was a little disappointed how they kind of wrapped it up at the end. I felt like they could have added a little bit more mystery elements, like maybe Adam was like in that other universe that Ahsoka and them are all at. And I mean, God, you know, 2024 we had Ahsoka as well, but you know, that's still coming off the heels of like people being a little iffy about things. And, you know, and that's okay. Was it 2024 for Ahsoka, or was it 2023? I can't say. Maybe it was, like, early 2024. But, you know, regardless, like, there was, like, so many interesting things with that show, too. And, you know, like, these shows open a lot of possibility. And that's something I also want to highlight besides the Dark Age topic. We're going to get to the Dark Age topic in a bit. But we're going to talk a little bit more about openness in Star Wars. So openness is not what you're thinking. It's not one of those that kind of politic kind of term. No. I'm talking about, like, you take an idea from Star Wars, right? Anything really, and you can think about all these cool what ifs about it, like that plausibility. That is a beautiful substance that the expanded universe had in so much ways, okay? It had it in so many ways, especially with the creative license that were given to authors so that they could allow that to flourish. That what if was just much more possible. And, you know, even in the beginning of, like, the critiques of, like, the first few Disney films, you know, we had some of that still with, like, some of the creators and stuff. They would go about what if that? What if this character had this happen to them? You know, those things. The thought of possibility, the thought of imagination for which someone could write up a fan fiction or think about it and, like, you know, really get intimate with this thought, you know, of what it could possibly be. Now, that was what we have been missing from Star Wars the last few years. Because Disney, unfortunately, even though they've brought so many great shows to life, the problem with how they write and how they choreograph things and coordinate things and, like, push it towards the film for us to all see is the sad reality of, you know, you aren't able to think so much what ifs about it, because like the things that it's based on lack that ability where there's more openness still to it. And while in some ways Disney has kept it vague, in some ways the vagueness is an openness, the same openness that could allow for these thoughts to flourish, which is what kind of led to the start of a dark age, because a lot of those fans that came into the Star Wars, you know, with the new movies, with the sequel trilogy, and, you know, all these other things that are coming up here or there, a little bit of Mandalorian, a little bit of Solo, and a little bit of like the other shows that came a little after that. You know, everyone was just hoping, hey, I hope these Star Wars things, there's, you know, some exploration of these thoughts, you know. I'm hoping these like fan theories that we're having, they're close to the mark on like what kind of quality of content we will be getting out of these, with all these evidential things, and like that everything has like a plan of some sort, and it's not being like made up as you go, and it's not like, you know, a beautiful thing like the revision things that you would see like in the original Star Wars, when they had something wrong, they would try to get it right, you know. It wasn't like that either. So, you know, that kind of led to the seeds of that. And then, you know, the critic culture happened, because like people realize, hey, if I can criticize something, you know, maybe I can find like-minded people. And that evolved from just being critiqued to just open Phantom Menace. The Phantom Menace. That's what it became. The Phantom Menace was the herald of the Dark Ages, from which Star Wars has been in for the last, I would say since the 8th movie. Since the 8th movie. A bit after that, about 6 months after that, is when that really kicked off. And ever since then, the Phantom Menace has been very strong, extremely so. And now we are in a moment where these themes are still being explored, but now we have an issue where that critique has dipped into something a little different. See, there's this thing, you know, the P word, the Star Wars is fans' favorite word, politics. Politics. You know, in universe, of course. These kind of politics have been used to create a division in so many different categories. You can guess what kind of category I get really categorized into. You know, I also struggle a bit with that, you know, as a target of those things. And, you know, all the same, Star Wars as well was made a target, not just because of the creators or like this thing that might be related to that, but because like, you know, we just wanted to bag on it instead of like thinking like of the openness of possibility of what if they could revise this certain thing, and, you know. But the problem was Disney sort of set things in stone and left things like unable to be fan fictionized, which led to these like creations of critique that evolved into culture war issues underneath it all, which, you know, they'll do like this indirect thing where they like say like, oh, I don't like this character, and it's not because of their some intangible quality that they have, such as like, you know, one of those target things. We're not going to say what they are. You know what they are. I know what they are. We all know what they are. You know, things like judging them for those things rather than like things, and then hiding behind, oh, it's because of the story wasn't good. But, you know, and then they'll like continue to harp on those things, but like they'll emphasize these points in such a way to enhance those that bring up those that want to think about it in that way, and they'll milk those people of their viewer retention and everything, because those people are looking for outlet for their frustrations in like some like cultural aspect that they disagree with, and they latch onto it. And then the Phantom Menace has become more of a, related to like the political and cultural movements that have started to give rise, not in 2019, 2018, 29, 28 were fucking golden ages, okay, for like political issues and like people getting like targeted, like a specific group of people that I can relate with. Now those were really good times. Okay, it's only like around 2021ish, was really when those those culture war issues really kicked off. And so the Phantom Menace converted into that, and it became this intangible thing, this miasma of disdain that has created the dark ages of Star Wars, where everything was under the knife, ready to be taken apart and used and flayed, without any of those fantastical elements we talk of, flayed to be shown to the world and shown to everybody, like, look at this, it's so disturbing and ugly, and look at these things that I disagree with that I'm going to hide behind, such as other cultural issues, by presenting it as though the story's bad, rather than trying to understand it for what it is. I'm gonna use these elements to try and bring ad revenue to me. And I'm gonna say, it's not because of ad revenue I'm doing that. No, it's because of this. Or no, it's because at that time the fans already became like burned down on things, and they forgot about the amazingness of like the past. They forgot how awesome the prequels were. They forgot how awesome the original trilogy was, and with less reasons to revisit these things, such as like Andor coming out, or like Rogue One coming out, or things that connected together to give you a new revitalized look at these things, because they aren't there. It leads to the Dark Ages, which leads to a sad, disappointing thing with how the fans started to view Star Wars, and slowly but surely the viewership for Star Wars content and channels disappeared, and the only way they could retain it was through cultural I'll say it, rage bait issues, outrage bait. It became all about that, like little trigger points that could get their brain clicking along. Because, after, a lot of people fell victim to this because they didn't know that, with how tired and weary they were coming back from work, their exposure to these things, gradually over time, converted them into these kind of anti-fans, where they less so were able to engage with positive things, such as revisits of the lore, or what's going on in Star Wars, what's being introduced, and instead whatever would be introduced, instead the only thing that they would talk about it was the rage point issues, because those are what would get the views. And that's what became the dichotomy of Star Wars content from 2020 to about, I'd say about to 2024, honestly. And then suddenly, magically, the Renaissance began. The Star Wars cultural renaissance began, and suddenly everything changed. It all changed. Now, it was a gradual change, mind you. But it was also those political issues coming to heel, because a lot of those people who first off connected to these subtle rage bait things, and a lot of them were confused, lost, and some even pushed out of the Star Wars fandom entirely because there's like, I'm not interested in this stuff. Or, you know, they got mixed up in life, and, you know, people forgot the beauty of escapism, of revisiting something that they loved so much that they connected to and would watch, you know, growing up, or whatever it might be in their life at that time, you know, before the Dark Ages, what Star Wars was to them, whether it be as a toy line, as a fan fiction, as a book obsession, or like a game obsession. You know, it was all those things and more. And, you know, the beauty of it all was that Star Wars welcomed them back after all that anger and stuff that they might have been through, or if they weren't involved with that at all, they, you know, lore videos started popping up again, and they started getting a little more interesting because, like, you know, the all these good medias that finally came out, because finally Disney's kind of finding their pace. Like, okay, I kind of messed up on this. I pushed a little too much on that. Okay, I'll pull back on that. And, you know, we'll focus on this and that. You know, this wasn't too of a hit. You know, little things like that. They did their thing. And finally, they got a few home runs. It took a while, but they got a few home runs. Andor was good, but they didn't get enough of a budget the first season. And, of course, Mandalorian Season 2 was good. Season 3, but, you know, yeah. And, you know, some of the Japanese animation Star Wars things was interesting, really cool for people to see. A lot of people like that. Some of the Tales of the Jedi ones were interesting too. Of course, those are the most interesting ones. And the Yato ones that came out recently with Dooku were very cool. You know, we started getting these little bits and pieces, and, you know, and slowly but surely things started falling together. And, you know, with me going to Star Wars Celebration, I saw firsthand, you know, the fans. The fan culture was insane. Really good. Really good. It was like Star Wars before the rage bait. Like, there was no hate at all at this event. There was so much love, so much people wanting to talk about Star Wars. Little Star Wars facts that, you know, weird stuff that only I would know. Like, Obi-Wan was, like, in the agricultural corp, for example. But then, you know, there'd be people who were, like, telling me about that, too. And we're talking about that, like, isn't that so cool? Wasn't that so cool about, like, you know, Obi-Wan's thing? And then, you know, what they're doing with the new canon, wasn't that interesting, too? I'd never thought about it like that. What an interesting vision, you know, little things like that. Or people, like, actually, like, a lot of people who are into the High Republic, like, a lot of people talking to me about that. Like, you know, and I'm just really like, oh, yeah. I need to look into the Nihil a little more. I need to understand the path a little bit more. Like, what the heck is all that? Like, isn't it so cool? And I'm just like thinking, like, oh man, wasn't Star Wars so freaking cool? And, you know, I guess that kind of encapsulates this whole idea of what Star Wars is and still is. But we all forgot about it, and now we're revisiting it, and we're getting to understand it once again. Like, what it is as, like, you know, not just, like, a little bits and pieces of rage bait and, like, things like, oh, why did they do that? And, you know, I'm gonna, like, add little subtle nuggets of little anger bits so I can, like, get those, like, you know, those chud warriors so up in arms about something, you know. I don't even know if that's the term they use for those people. I say people, but I don't know what they are, but you people, you need to think about Star Wars a little bit more and what it's really about. Entertainment! Got you there. See, outrage bait right there. Isn't that fun? So, you know, the thing is, like, Star Wars is freaking amazing, and You know, there's so much to be found from it, especially these days. And we got this renaissance, which is just allowing, you know, little bits of things about Star Wars lore. Even, you know, people who might have been outrage baiting are trying to get back into, you know, the normal lore thing, but they can't because, like, you know, the audience was already turned off from them because they started doing that, and they're looking to the people that have been keeping up with it but just hadn't been getting a lot of views. Like, hell, look at Stupendous Way, for example. Like, there was or Eckhart's Ladder, or whatever. Like, you know, these people were chugging along making some good Star Wars content in, like, this dark age, and they maybe get, like, 20K, 30K views, but now they're back to the 100K. Oh my gosh! Like, 100K, 200K I've seen. And, like, I even saw the other day, like, oh god, there was, just like a random Star Wars channel I've never seen get like 500K out of nowhere. I was just talking, like, you know, basic lore things of, like, a fan fiction of, like, Mace Windu with Anakin Skywalker, 500K in, like, less than a few weeks. And it's like, whoa, that's crazy. So it's like, it's obvious there's a huge Star Wars renaissance right now, and it's consuming the space. It is taking out all these cultural rage bait warriors right now. It is throwing them into the dumps. Star Wars is getting reclaimed. It is no longer about how much you can trigger somebody subtly to farm their views. No, we're never returning to that because, you know, those people, those kind of people, unfortunately, you know, in the real world, they kind of represent the people that these people that are reconnecting to Star Wars are trying to escape from, which is the big point of this all. This is how we wrap this up, okay, right here. We're here for it. Escapism. And Star Wars is escapism. There's enough lore to get lost in it. Like, we got the expanded universe, we got these new canon books that, you know, there's a lot to catch up on if you weren't even in the loop with the expanded universe. Like, the new canon stuff's a lot to get into as well. Whether or not, like, they keep some of the canon books canon or not, you know, that's debatable with Disney. I think it's not as wishy-washy and, you know, creative licensee of okay, that person did that, so I have to do this and work with that, and I have to revise this, or find a way to introduce some other person's book element into mine. You know, it's not so interconnected. They may trash a book here or there with Disney. But, you know, regardless of that, you know, Disney at least has, like, a bunch of books coming out. So, you know, that's the thing. We are at a point where we are going to be getting a chance to fix it all. You know? And that's freaking amazing. Because Star Wars is a great series, but it's becoming a theme, okay? And it is a theme of escapism right now that a lot of people are seeking out because the real world sucks right now, okay? It sucks. And nobody that's into Star Wars right now, I would say a large majority of the people I met are going to connect with anything rage bait at all. And that is what those people who would try to make digs at things, unfortunately, would cater to, whether they realize it or not. That's the thing, whether they realize it or not. And a lot of them aren't so level-minded, but, you know, a few of them maybe realized it, but will plausibly deny it. And, you know, we have to leave it at that. We have to leave those rage-baiting people at just that. They will plausibly deny it, and we just go, okay, all right. Well, I kind of like what Stupendous Wave is making as a show, so I'm going to connect to that. And, you know, we'll leave it at that. You know, things like that. I know it's just calling them out there, but, you know, I really enjoy this content recently. It makes me feel warm inside, and there's a lot of content channels that are coming up like that. I'll probably add them in the description, but, you know, there's a lot of that, and, you know, I think there's a lot of people that still want to connect to the Star Wars series as, you know, as a massive, expansive thing, and there's so much beauty in it right now. that we're going to continue to get so much beauty in the series going forward with things. Well, will they be as deep as the current expanded universe? Maybe not in like the creative sense of like, oh, what if this happened or what if that happened? But if people are able to work with the Disney things and think about the what ifs, like especially like I love the Acolyte for that, because it had so many mystery elements and it left you in, it lied to you. And that I like being lied to, because it made like those what ifs, like it actually gave a purpose to what ifing, and thinking about it and like, having it in your brain, like being able to escape to that. That's the point of Star Wars. It's meant to make you think about those what if things, because like nobody was thinking like Vader was like Luke's father. Spoilers. But it's just like that. It's like one of those things. Those what if things are so important to have. It is a core component besides revisionism, which is another core component of Star Wars. That is a huge component I will get into in another video. But that and what ifs are huge, huge, huge. There's more to it, but I'll need much more time to talk about it. But that said, that's pretty much what I'd like to cover about this. We are in a renaissance again, and it's escapism as for why people are into it, because the real world fucking sucks. Sorry for swearing, but it's so bad. It's so bad. And we see the political themes of these things in Star Wars, and we see a resolution to those in Star Wars. Whether you agree or not with these end results, at least if you're thinking about like prequels to original trilogy, I don't know. But I don't know. It kind of makes sense, I think. I think original trilogy and the sequels kind of represents also a bit of the American situation too. So, yeah. Oh, I kind of gave it away then, didn't I? I think there's a few other places in the world besides the Americanization, like a few other countries that might represent current things. And like there's current demographics of people that also are affected. I'm not going to say which ones, but you can probably guess which ones I'm talking about. Those kind of people, yeah. Yeah, Star Wars represents an escape for them, and also the people that affiliate with those, and those that might not even realize that they also are affluent with those. And, it really does. It's always been about those things. George has always made it about those things. He's always, whether or not you agree with it, maybe you've been too distracted by the lights and the pew-pew to notice these things, besides the warring stuff. But those have always been underlying themes. They've only been highlighted a few times, but now they're very highlighted. They're there. They've always been there. You just needed to really dig for it. But I know for some people that may be a little challenging, especially after a hard day of work, to, think about it, these things like in a more, I'd say it from my perspective, obsessive way, or like a interested way to understand, things like, as though it's your own like code of laws or something that you follow. Yeah. I didn't want to say like a religion or anything for these, God no, but I would say like just something that you're really into. So yeah, that's about it though I would like to talk about. So yeah, Star Wars is escapism, and for these people that's why they're going to it right now. And that's why I wanted to highlight this, because like I don't think anyone's highlighted why Star Wars is blowing up again, besides like some good releases. It's escapism right now, and people are remembering. It's like their member berries, like from South Park. They're taking them again and remembering, oh wow, actually this was pretty good. And it's not for like member bearers as in like, oh, I want the sequel things again. Like, no, JJ, stay where you are. We don't need you here for the moment. Thank you for your contributions. But, we'll talk about sequels another time. I personally feel like those also as a side note, like a tangent. I think they're workable. I think need more movies between 6 and down. Spread out the numbers, revise it again. You've changed numbers on Star Wars movies before. Let's do it again. That said, to wind it all back to where I was trying to end on, yep, we need escapism because, even me, I'm what ifing right now. Isn't that the love of Star Wars right there? To be thinking about what ifs, to be thinking about how we can make it the most beautiful thing it can be with our fan fictions. That should be good because these imagination, these things, these components are going to be the very essence of whether you come to be fulfilled or not. And if Star Wars is making you feel that way, if Star Wars is making you thinking about, well, what if Mace Windu taught Anakin, or what if Yoda met Darth Bane 900 years ago or something, or what if Jason and Jaina Solo were actually around, and for whatever circumstances, as with the Galactic Alliance and whatever else, and maybe using Vong or something, things like that. All these things occurred, and that maybe that's what led to the sequels being in such a dilapidated state or something, or why we didn't see Coruscant, for example, because it's just like that. Those are the places. That's why it wasn't the Republic's forces being dwindled. No, it was because not because they're trying to keep a peacekeeping force. No, they had an alliance with the First Order to take on the Yuuzhan Vong or whatever threat they may have done. And maybe Luke went crazy because he was fighting off Abeloth, and with Ahsoka out of time and space or something. Things like that, or whatever. Darth Krayt was there. Things like that. That's what Star Wars needs to have. If you're thinking about these things, how you as a creative or a fan or whatever can think of a way to edit and revise. I would say that's very on point with what Star Wars, because remember, New Hope wouldn't have happened without them, those good people, a certain person that's the current president of Star Wars. Those people editing and making sure that it's tangible and workable, So we need to trust that and project our ideas out to them, that we can edit and save the things that we have now. And, there might be some mistakes, but, with future projects, and as long as Star Wars can go on, we can find ways to revise and edit things and post, or even far after a show comes out, we can find a way to add plausibility. That's the thing about Star Wars. There wasn't such thing as the Chosen One until George decided to throw it into Phantom Menace. It wasn't there. You completely reworked the story of Vader, and now we go along with that to justify the original trilogy. Things like that. Same thing like Obi-Wan's robe is just winding up as the most important thing to be based on for Jedi robes into the prequels or something. Things like that. Little things like that. Those are revisions. Those are reusing things. And we can do the same even for things like past or present, in the timeline, future timeline or the thing, or even between. We can add things between there to justify things, to make it more seamless, to make it work. And that's what I think we will see with Star Wars. So yeah, I'm gonna end this here. Now I think I kind of explained everything about this in bit way too long, but that's okay. I think somebody will find this valuable, and it will explain everything about how this all kind of conjoins together. in the Dark Ages. Bye-bye. And now we are in the Renaissance. And we can enjoy Star Wars once again for a long time, I hope. And it'll represent the escapism that many people are looking for to get them through for the next few years or more, for whatever reason. And it becomes more than escapism, but a hobby for you to enjoy and remember and be just big part of. And, to be inspired from, to make your own creative projects off of, the good feelings that Star Wars gave you, like the parts that you like about it, that you want to work with. Because Star Wars is meant to be a theme box, and while the creative license might not be as open as it used to be with how you could author in the universe, we at least, can be inspired by it to make our own shows, to make our own things, to make our own creativity. And, Star Wars can represent that. So, that's the true theme of Star Wars, openness. And yeah, to those that are interested in that, I hope you enjoyed this talk. I am surprised I talked this long, but, I guess I'm just really passionate. Yeah, I think these are all points I will make smaller videos about, especially revisionism and the other one I talked about. Anyways, bye. Have a good one.